Hi, if you have addiction problems or someone you love has addiction problems, today I'd like to share just a little bit about my research. My name's Phoebe Hutchison, founder of PLP Solutions, Passionate Life Program. And hopefully this information about addiction will help. Thank you. So there's many questions about addiction. What are the causes? What are the techniques that work? And there's many that don't work. I'm going to go into some of these today, as well as our approach. So in 2018, we had a pilot on addiction that worked extraordinarily well. And PLP is my third book, and my goal is to reduce worldwide depression using all my books, and particularly this PLP Passionate Life program. I'll just jump straight into it. Why is addiction counselling so complex? And of course, why is addiction so complex? Because we're looking at neural pathways, reward pathways, brain chemistry, your nervous system, your genetics, psychosocial, your culture. There's a lot going on that causes addiction. There's actually more complications. You might have problematic thoughts. Your subconscious thoughts might be problematic. Low self-esteem. You might not like yourself. You might be losing yourself, but you could also be suffering from grief, from lost a job, from lost a friend. You might be emotional. You might suffer from anger management. You might be physiologically challenged. Maybe you're not eating enough. Maybe you're not exercising. You may have trouble with your friendships. Maybe you're not connecting. Maybe you're being walked on or abused, or maybe you're isolating yourself. There's many things that could cause you to feel like your life is just unhappy when you're not using. So I want to talk about the subconscious programs. Many of our clients have a similar subconscious program of life is hard and I am not good enough. That obviously causes problems. And throughout the PLP, the Passionate Life program, you will learn how to work around these. Many people say, why can't I stop drinking? Why can't they stop drinking? Why is this the most complex of all therapies? Why does one person have it and someone else doesn't? And how should we help someone? They're really big questions. Stopping drinking or stopping substance use is not just as simple as flicking a switch. There's many mechanisms, triggers, brain chemistry, memories, and your nervous system that are at play. That's why it's so complex, I believe, because it's not simply sit down and listen to the client and say, hey, how was your week? How do you feel about that? That's not enough. And why does one person have addiction and not another? We'll go into that in a minute, but reward pathways are certainly one thing. Childhood trauma is another. And how do we help someone? I think that empowering the person, loving the person, but not getting walked on by the person, but allowing the person to have help. And I believe that professional help is needed in most cases. So these approaches work, and sometimes they don't. I think CBT can be a bit, you must say this or you must say that. And that can be really hard for someone who's feeling like they can't cope in life. Talk therapy is great, but in terms of someone who's traumatized, it's actually not, unless the counsellor also gives you trauma release therapies. 12-step groups can be a place for you to go and share and talk, but sometimes this can be just a place where lots of people get and talk about their problems and there's no solution. It's just constantly ruminating, going over and over that negative information. Detox is fantastic because it stops your body from being addicted, but you need your brain to also be helped. So that's where you need a program or a counsellor or a specialist. And rehab is fantastic in that it stops the behavioural side of addiction because it stops you going out and using. But if it's not done with a positive program that is going to help you heal and trauma release, in my opinion, it's not the package. So some of these things on this screen are part of the package, but we need much more. So we need to go beyond just talking about our problems. We need to help the problems be processed. And there's different therapies for those things. There is another way. I totally believe what we've done at PLP is we've used the science of addiction and to help our clients. And we really simplified it into a 12-step program that covers not just addiction, but it's also about goal setting and lots of other things. That's a fantastic program. So the neuroscience of addiction is where we really need to go if we want to help someone with addiction. So I want to talk first of all about why are you addicted? Well, according to Gabor Mate, who is the world's foremost expert on addiction counselling, in my opinion, his approach is that people who have addiction are trying to escape from physical pain, from the emotional pain, that they are victims in a sense that need help. And it's through attachment, it's through connecting with others, connecting with the counsellor, connecting with friends, connecting with themselves that they can change. I really love the way Gabor talks. I think that's paramount in our work. It's an empathetic relationship with the client, respecting and loving that client, because when you have addiction, there's a lot going on. So childhood trauma, the ACEs study, Adverse Childhood Experiences study, was where 17,000 people with physical and mental health issues and substance use were interviewed to find out the correlation between what's going on for them and their childhood. And there were a few curses, a few criteria that were interviewed on. And if you had one, you may, if you had two, if you had three, you may, if you had five, you're more than likely to have issues with addiction, etc. But this really showed that the childhood that we have massively impacts our adult life. And this study showed that if you have parents divorcing, that's one change. If you have parents that one was maybe an addict, that's another level in the ACEs study. If you had violence that you're exposed to or that you saw, there's so many things that could have happened in your childhood which could detrimentally impact you and make it very easy for you to have substance use. The reward pathways are quite interesting, and Patrick Carnes, in his work, he talked about this, and I love Patrick's work. He is, in my opinion, the expert in the world on sex addiction, and I studied a lot of his work when I was working with sex addicts. And he talked about that these reward pathways in our brain change when the person has that substance or has that sexual experience. And they change in accordance with what they are going to now crave in the future. And it's really sad. Like many of my clients, when I ask them when did they first have that drink of alcohol or that first drug, it's quite often between the ages of 8 and 13. So that's when the brain has prioritized that drug or that drink and has said, I need this to survive, and things start happening. And over time, that can really become a very strong physical craving and a connection. It involves the dopamine reward pathways as well. So I'd like to talk to you about trauma. Peter Levine created somatic experiencing. And why am I talking about trauma? Because obviously people who have addiction are trying to escape the body, trying to numb the body, because quite often that trauma is in the body. And what Peter Levine found is that, yes, traumas end up being in the body. And the example that he used on YouTube, you can see, is a man who'd been to war and they thought he had Tourette's because his head kept moving. But it was actually when the bomb went off, that was the way he was looking. And that was such a traumatic experience that it was captured in the body. And when he had this somatic experience, trauma release, that was released. So a lot is said in Peter Levine's work about the body needing to shake off or complete actions. Like, you know how when you get stressed, when something terrible happens, like a car accident, you shake like crazy. Well, animals shake extensively after trauma, and that releases that trauma. and then they are able to move on with their day. They don't get PTSD. There's an example Peter Levine uses about a polar bear on YouTube about this one. It's the completion of that nervous energy. He talks about fight and flight and freeze as well. And these are the things that are happening in clients with addiction. So in PLP, we talk about these things and help the client understand and also do trauma work. So this is just a picture of the nervous system, and it's incredibly complicated, but it's a really good one to show that there are two sides to our autonomic nervous system. There's the sympathetic, which is the fired up, and there's the parasympathetic, which is the calm down. And our goal is to help clients regulate their nervous systems, because after traumas keep happening over and over, then people keep getting stuck in fight and flight. They might have panic attacks, they might feel anxious all the time. So it's really our job to give clients tools so they can help regulate their nervous systems. I just want to stop and say here that with PLP and any amazing addiction training, you're looking at the underneath person. You're looking at the depression, anxiety, nervous systems, and everything. You're not looking at the symptoms, which is the addiction at the start, because you have to heal underneath. And that's what we believe in PLP. So I'd like to go here to this. I love this idea that there is a hippocampus flooding when we have trauma. So when we witness an event that's traumatic, or we go through a traumatic experience, then what normally happens is the hippocampus files those memories away and they're in the past. But when we have a significant trauma, the hippocampus actually gets flooded. Like, think about a car getting flooded with petrol. It gets flooded with cortisol, and it can't file away that memory. Now, this can cause PTSD. It can certainly cause triggering if it's not PTSD for such a long time. So with whether it's EMDR, brain spotting, somatic experiencing, or our tailor-made somatic therapy, it's really important that we help the client process some of these things so the client's not constantly living in the trauma of the past, which obviously would lead them to want to use. Here we've got another part. I learned about this when I learnt brain spotting many years ago, that our emotions are unprocessed in the subcortical part of the brain many times when we go, or when we are in an experience that's traumatic. So we have this traumatic experience, and what we normally do is we go, I've got to call the ambulance, I've got to help that person, I've got to do this. So we're always doing, but the screams of horror of what we've just seen and been through have not been processed. So there are fantastic ways that we can help this process, because if we don't, it's just like the memories being in the current moment. These emotions can trigger us severely, and they can cause blocks in our life and stop us going certain ways. They can cause panic attacks and anxiety and many different things. So we really need to have these processed, and that's what we do in PLP, but certainly can be done with EMDR, brain spotting, and somatic experiencing. So Daniel Amen, he did scans. Now, this is probably going to be upsetting to anyone that uses drugs or drinks. It just shows that over time, it's almost like there's holes in the brain. It's not the actual structure, it's the blood flow. And these are SPECT images. So they're special images to show how the brain can change if we use drugs for a long period of time. This is also the same for people who have OCD or PTSD. You can see in some of these different diagnosed conditions that there's more activity in different parts of the brain than others. Now, while I'm talking about activity, because we're talking about why do people have addiction, I want to just talk about another area that I don't have a slide for here. It's in the PLP. But have you ever wondered why you have one drink and you have two drinks, and the next thing you know, you can't stop, you're having more? Or some people start off with marijuana, the next thing you know, they're taking ice. It's like the brain becomes quite dumb. The reason it does is because when you're drinking, you're overactivated more in the limbic system, which is your animal brain. So what separates us from animals is this prefrontal cortex. But when you're drinking, this becomes a little offline. Like, scans have shown that you're lighting up more in the limbic system. So you are more of an animal. So that part of you that would say, no, I better not have another drink. No, I better not, have 6 drinks or 10 drinks. That's not being fully activated. So at some point that stops or cuts down. So that's why many of my clients have had problems with, why do I drink? The next thing you know, I'm fighting with someone. I'm always doing it. It's because we're going to the animal brain. And it's just like anger. Anger's the same. Yeah, it's quite fascinating. So this is a fantastic show. So please note National Geographic, the science behind addiction. Here's your brain on drugs. It's a fantastic little movie for you to watch. I think you'll absolutely love it. But it teaches you so much, but at the moment, I'm just going to try and pop out of it. I did it. So here we are, exercise and change. The only thing we ask from our clients, and the only thing you need is someone who's struggling with drug use, or even if it's overeating or sex addiction, the only thing you need is to want to change, and then see someone who's an expert in those areas, because that's all we need at PLP. We just need you to want to change, and then we handle the rest. It's like a little journey. It's like almost like a car wash. You're coming in and you're feeling all dirty and you come out clean. It's 12 steps, but it's tailor-made to help you. So this is a little bit about our pilot program, which was done in Bairnsdale, Victoria. We had 30 clients, 12 to 14 sessions, 40% achieved full recovery, 60% reduced substance use, and 33% found work. That was the foundation of us establishing PLP Solutions. It was very exciting work. Now, PLP, what we do is we assess. So we're going to ask you 8 pivotal questions about, it's a psychosocial assessment about all these things, about your thoughts, your self-esteem, your past trauma, your emotional management, your physiological state, your support networks, your hobbies, and your lifestyle. We're going to use this, which is the life balance wheel, and we're going to do that again. Now, what are we looking for with the PLP? We're looking for change in 4 pivotal areas. So we want to look for change in your subconscious and conscious thoughts. We're looking for change, as we've discussed, processing some of these blocks or traumas for you. And they're done very, I wouldn't say effortlessly, but you don't have to talk about your trauma when you work with us. You just have to start, and then we help. So the trauma release is amazing. And attachment. So we have highly empathetic counsellors who are trained in the PLP to lovingly guide you through the program. And it's at your pace. And then we have tools which can help you with your anxiety, panic attacks, depression, grief, and much more. So that's what we're dealing with: the depression, the anxiety, the grief. These are the common underlying areas of depression, of addiction. So we've got, basically, we will also help you with your neural pathways. So helping you understand neurogenesis and neuroplasticity are real. So whatever you keep doing, as you can see over here, you're going to have a strong neural pathway, and new ones, you won't have one, but you'll start, and then the old ones will start to fade. So it definitely is about behavior change. That's definitely a part of it, because it takes 21 days to change a habit and 60 days for neural pathway changes. We're also going to teach you about your brain chemistry, how to get less cortisol, how to get more oxytocin, endorphins, dopamine, and serotonin, and why these may be in short supply. So if you are a drug user or someone who drinks, what you may find is that you feel amazing, you feel on top of the world, strong, powerful, all the endorphins are going. That's when the dopamine is released into your brain. And the way I like to think about it, it's a little bit trippy, but I like to think that we've got these motherships in our brain, and they release the little spaceships of the dopamine, and dopamine makes us feel incredible. And when anyone has drugs or alcohol, all the spaceships are released and you feel incredible with this powerful neurotransmitter. But the way that this has been designed is so you go back for more. They dry up. So these motherships won't release these little ships of dopamine, which means the very thing you need to feel motivated and happy is not happening. And also throughout everything you're doing, you can also negatively adjust your serotonin. There's things you're not doing, you're not resting, you're not sitting in the sun, maybe you're not eating, good quality foods, and your serotonin is also compromised, which is the very thing you need to feel peaceful and relaxed. So the things that you need to feel peaceful and relaxed and powerful and motivated and incredible are being robbed. So I can only imagine how you feel, but it must be terrible. And that's why we've got this program to help you through this. all about neural pathway changes. We do have some of our counsellors who are trained in the crocodile technique that Dr. Roby Abeles created, which is a brain spotting technique. And that really helps just to flip your brain around, because you might think that marijuana is the best thing in the world. And if you do this technique here, all of a sudden you're seeing all the negatives. It's like your brain completely changes, the neural pathways change, and it takes about 45 minutes, and it's absolutely incredible. So yeah, if you need that, yell out to us, but we are there to help you, and we do have some of our counsellors who can do that, and it's amazing. So basically, the emphasis behind the PLP, the Passionate Life program, is that when you know what to do, how and why, change occurs fast. And you want it to be fast, don't you? I just want to say thank you. My name's Phoebe Hutchison. The company, of course, is PLP Solutions. The program is the Passionate Life program. And if you want any more information about some of the things I've discussed, you can actually look up these videos, and they actually are fantastic. Loved speaking to you. May your love for your life and yourself deepen more daily.